Okay.
Yep.
Can you take that timer down? I can't see my written comments on the screen. Hang on. Okay.
Are you trying to share?
That's all right. No, I'm good. I'm good. Don't worry.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Bill Balson. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay. Recently, I conducted a survey on Pillar Point Harbor's future. The top level result is that only 15% of a large sample of coastside voters favor removing the outer seawall. Significant support was found for the existing Harbor Board plans for keeping the seawall, rebuilding Surfers Beach, and preserving the eelgrass. Between October 10 to 14, then an email survey was conducted of coastside communities. In Half Moon Bay, about 4,197 invitations were sent. In Montera, Moss Beach, El Granada, and Princeton, 4,209 invitations were sent. Responses were received back by 579 invitees. So the raw response rate was 6.9%, which is on the high side, typically seen by email surveys, indicating a very high level of interest in this topic on coastside. About 45% of the respondents were from Half Moon Bay and about 55% from other coastside communities. The survey found very high usage rates for Pillar Point Harbor and Surfers Beach. Within the past 6 months, 98% had visited Pillar Point Harbor, and 63% had visited Surfers Beach. Erosion near Surfers Beach has been observed by 84% of the respondents. The respondents appeared to have a high understanding of the impacts of the seawall built in the 1960s, including that the harbor is preserved from the storms, 68%, and there is increased erosion of the bluffs, 65%, and that sand is washed into the harbor rather than Surfers Beach, 64%. The respondents' top choice for the impact on the harbor of removing the seawall was that the storms would do increased damage. That was by 41%. The respondents' top choice for impact on the eelgrass of removing the seawall was that the eelgrass would be significantly diminished, and that was by 42%. Yes.
I want to thank you for your comment and also invite you, if you have more to say. This is going to be on our agenda today. It's the first item. And you are welcome to come back at that time and finish what you have to say. Marcy Amato, I see your hand raised.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I wanted to say that today out here in Pillar Point Harbor, I was involved in actually 2 animal rescues. There was a northern fur seal over towards Mavericks Beach that the Marine Mammal Center was responding to. And so I assisted by going up on the trails and asking everybody coming to keep their dogs on leash. And, you know, most people complied. Some people tried to sort of get out of view and then take their dogs off leash. And then when I came back over here, sort of by the yacht club, well, right directly in front of the yacht club, there was a very sick cat in the surf, which I've never seen anything like that before. So went out and retrieved the cat and called the Peninsula Humane Society, and they came and they picked it up. But with the cat, there was a lady who was somewhat trying to assist because I guess her dogs had gone after it. So she secured her dogs, and then she wanted to try to make sure no other dogs were, you know, running around in the area. And this is an issue I've spoken of before. The harbor knows my position on this. I just want all these dogs on leash, and or at least more attempts made to get that to happen. And that's really all I have to say today, because that's my position. But it was kind of a big day and an unusual day. Thank you very much.
Catherine Slater-Carter.
I will make this very quick. I was talking to, doing some sleuthing and history seeking on the harbor yesterday, and was talking to somebody who has been a longtime harbor user. And it turns out that when the inner breakwater was put in, which was sometime in the early 80s, and the boat launch area was put in, there had been a marsh in that area of the harbor. And instead, the marsh over by the yacht club, between Mavericks and the yacht club, was restored and used as mitigation for not the outer breakwater, but the inner breakwater. And as such, I believe that has a particular status, protected status. I would ask you to look into that, because if removing the outer breakwater would damage the inner mitigation project, it would either have to be remitigated or protected from that. So it's one of this tangled web of improvements that have gone in at the Harbor District and have led to improvements and mitigations. And it would be useful to have lists of these kinds of things. Thank you very much.
I don't see any other hands raised, so at this time we'll move to the consent calendar. Do any commissioners have items they would like to pull from today's consent calendar, or do I have a motion to approve?
I actually have an item to pull just so that I can get clarity on one part of this, and that's item number 6 regarding workers' compensation.
Okay, thank you. Any other items?
Motion to approve the consent calendar minus item 6.
I'll second that.
Great. Roll call, Melanie?
Do you want to see if it's public comment?
Oh, I don't see any hands raised. No public comment? Then we'll move to roll call, Melanie.
Commissioner Zemke?
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Chan-Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
President Ryan?
Aye. Great. So I'm going to put item number 6 at the end of the agenda, and we'll move on to the discussion items now. The first discussion item is item number 10, One Shoreline. And Jim Pruitt, this is your informational item for the board.
Unmuted. So good afternoon, commissioners. Again, thank you for taking your time and allowing me to brief this issue to the board. Item 10 concerns One Shoreline and their potential long-term plan for the coastal shoreline in and around Pillar Point Harbor. This staff report is being presented due to the lack of notification and coordination between One Shoreline and the Harbor District, as demonstrated by the rollout of the Pillar Point Harbor Area Shoreline Management Study. I'd like to start out that both the CEO of One Shoreline and Harbor District have recently increased coordination, and the Harbor District looks forward to a more robust coordination with One Shoreline and all interested parties and agencies with respect to the San Mateo County coastal shoreline protection. A little bit of background. On November 9th, 2021, staff at One Shoreline presented a request to the Sea Level Rise Resiliency District to fund the Pillar Point study, and that request was approved. At some point between the 9th of November in 2021 and September 7th, 2022, One Shoreline contracted with the consultant to conduct the study. And I think it's important to know from the perspective of the consultant to ask what question they were asked to answer during that study. And the information I gather is from my brief with One Shoreline and also online documents from their website. First thing was provided was in their study was multiple jurisdictions and key stakeholders share responsibility for an adaptive regional solution that addresses long-term future conditions by working with nature rather than fighting against it. or excuse me, working with nature rather than fighting it where possible. The phrase working with nature rather than fighting it is critical. The contractor addressed moving sand from north of the harbor to and within the harbor to south of the harbor naturally. Currently, sand from the north of the harbor is being prevented from moving south naturally by the outer breakwater. One Shoreline also set the following performance objective for the contractor: that key built recreational and ecological assets may be modified, but they must be sustained over the long run. Here it's important to note the language that may be modified, but also they must be sustained over the long run. Pillar Point Harbor is a key built, recreational, and ecological facility on the coast side. And per this guidance, it must be maintained. The proposed plan does not maintain the harbor. It destroys the harbor and the reason it exists by opening it to open ocean and reducing the size of the harbor itself. With respect to notification of the study One Shoreline, the Harbor District was notified of the study beyond that published agenda item. On September 7th, I went over as the Harbor District and learned of and was presented a brief on One Shoreline's Pillar Point Harbor Area Shoreline Management Study. The study, which is a long-term study looking out 50 to 100 years or more into the future, the study is long-term. The study proposes or documents significant change to Pillar Point Harbor to include relocating the breakwater near Mavericks, significantly reducing the size of the outer harbor, removal of the outer breakwater leading from Surfers Beach, exposing the harbor to open ocean, removal and relocation of the launch ramp into the inner harbor, and installation of artificial reefs south of the harbor on waters and submerged lands owned and under the jurisdiction of the Harbor District and National Marine Sanctuary. At the end of the brief, One Shoreline staff and I agreed that 2 points with respect to the issue of shoreline protection in and around Pillar Point Harbor are, it is all about the sand. How do we move the sand from north of the harbor and within the harbor to south of the harbor? i.e., replenishing Surfers Beach, and the outer breakwater at Pillar Point Harbor does interfere with the natural movement of sand from north to south. What was not considered is, and again, One Shoreline's plan is very long-term. It's looking out into the future. It did not consider immediate solutions to the problem to move sand and protect the shoreline today. The Harbor District has plans to use mechanical means to move sand north to south as documented in the Surfers Beach replenishment pilot project, where the district will be using a dredge to dredge the harbor and place that clean fill outside the harbor onto Surfers Beach, rebuilding 1,000 feet of Surfers Beach. If the pilot project is successful, and we think it will be, it's the intent of the Harbor District to obtain a full-time dredge in the harbor that can be used to replenish not only Surfers Beach, but also protect Princeton by the sea and the West Trail by replenishing the sand in front of those structures and areas. After the meeting with One Shoreline over the past few weeks, Harbor District staff as well as One Shoreline staff believe the One Shoreline long-term plan and the district's immediate plan to protect the shoreline while maintaining safety of navigation are complementary. The Harbor District plan will address the issue now and into the future, while One Shoreline plan addresses the long-term solution and beyond based on assumptions of sea level rise. If in 25 years sea level rise is not as bad or is worse than forecasted, the shoreline plan can be adjusted in out years to protect the harbor and continue to move sand while the district continues to move sand mechanically to maintain surface beach, as well as the beaches inside the breakwater. This brief is based on, again, the initial brief of One Shoreline Plan and the agenda report of September 26th. The Harbor District does not have a copy of the presentation mentioned in the One Shoreline report. And again, I want to emphasize that there are two different plans addressing two different time periods where the district's efforts will address, the next 50 years and beyond. Well, One Shoreline is taking a holistic look at beyond 50 years on how to protect the shoreline on the coastline. Len Matterman, the CEO of One Shoreline, is also present today. If you have any questions for him, and pending any questions for me, that concludes my brief.
Thank you, Jim. I see we have a commissioner with his hand raised, and I'll also ask for the public comment. Commissioner Mateusz.
General Manager Pruitt, did One Shoreline consult with the Harbor District and or notify the Harbor District they were studying this from the absolute beginning?
The district was not notified.
Thank you.
I'm going to move to public comment. Each individual will have 2 minutes to make a comment. I see Brian Overfelt. Brian.
There we go. Thank you for allowing this time for us to speak. I just wanted to say I've met with, after hearing about this One Shoreline scenario about the outer breakwater and learning about the poor communication they've had with not only the Harbor District, but any of the coastside residents, especially those that have homes and businesses inside the harbor. I just wanted to say that after speaking with multiple fishermen, multiple business owners, and multiple homeowners the last couple of days, we really appreciate the efforts of Tom Mateusz, Virginia Chang Crawley, and Nancy Ryring for our pilot dredge coming up. I love Mr. Pruitt's idea about a long-term sand movement program with a dredge, and we support that 100%. And we feel extremely disrespected by such an organization as One Shoreline and Len Matterman or whoever this is, that you're not from this community to come in here and try and take something away from us. Do you have any idea about our culture, how wonderful it is for bird watchers, fishermen, surfers, kayakers, and on and on and on? The solution here, the most environmental, economic, and efficient solution is to dredge this harbor and nourish our beaches. To hear of anything else right now is ridiculous. And I'll say this, hey, if there's some long-term fixes to our harbor wall, well, let's sit down and have a conversation, a public discussion. But to be moving forward and putting things on agendas without communicating, even with our Harbor District, is terrible. And that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Mark Massara.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Mark Massara. I hope you can hear me. I'm a coastal land use lawyer and resident in Miramar, and a huge supporter and booster of your now years and of expensive efforts related to dredging the harbor. And the myriad of benefits that will come from that activity. And I just want to say that I really support what Director Pruitt was suggesting in his presentation about long-term solutions to beach nourishment and maintaining the myriad of benefits, some of which Brian just mentioned, associated with the harbor, as well as the local fishing, commercial fishing fleet. They're not building any more harbors in California, so that if you lose this one, it's not as though it is going to be replaced either in San Mateo County or anywhere else. That said, I think that the timing and the headlines associated with the One Solution announcement regarding essentially elimination of the outer harbor wall and the harbor itself was really unfortunate, in as much as the message that it sends to the other regulatory agencies that you're working with is just that there's agency chaos amongst San Mateo County organizations. And if one solution, wants to actually be a productive, positive component of this effort, they need to reach out to the Coastal Commission and these other regulatory agencies to express their support for all of the years and work that you've put in now on this dredging proposal, because we're at the finish line. I'm hoping this gets approved, short.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Looks like we lost the end of your comment. Carrie Burke.
Good afternoon. I'm Carrie Burke, and I appreciate the Harbor District's effort to look at comprehensive solutions to our situation. We are the only safe harbor between San Francisco and Santa Cruz, and it's such an important part of our infrastructure on coastal San Mateo County, and we're so proud of it, and we can work to make it better. And I know the Harbor District has been working on this solution for years, and there will be new technologies and things we can do, but really right now we have to just work and listen and cooperate. But however, I think the infrastructure we have, both public and private, is so phenomenal. We have to really pay attention to those needs. And there's another group known as Smart Coast, and they're a big proponent of some of these offshore reefs that can also help with this situation with the sand migration. So I appreciate all your efforts, having this on the agenda, keeping open communication with One Shoreline and all the other entities, but keep up the good work, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
John Ullum.
Thank you, President Raring, for the opportunity to speak. I'm looking at the results of a Public Records Act request, and it's very clear to me that One Shoreline has been working with staff at the Harbor District for multiple years. I'm seeing like dozens of emails between different staff members, between the general manager, and so I'm kind of fascinated by all of a sudden there's this emergency that was declared a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday morning, when apparently Mr. Pruitt was informed of what was going on September 7th. But the freakout started over a month later when Nancy Raring tried to organize an emergency meeting on a Sunday morning for a Monday morning to be held. And then they canceled it. So the other thing that the people who are, speaking to this about should understand is that the Harbor District has a liaison committee that specifically addresses infrastructure, sea level rise, and working with other agencies. And that meeting, that particular committee hasn't met for years, even though it's chaired and the sole member is Virginia Chain-Carali. So if there's any disconnect here and failure to communicate, it seems to be on the part of the Harbor District, which seems to have totally ignored what they were being told. And again, I'd be glad to share this set of emails with anybody. And to the last thing, the people who are concerned about the district really need to go and look at the state of the harbor itself. It's in horrible shape. The Harbor District doesn't have any money. And if you really care about safety and all that, you will stick around for the last meeting of this day where they're going to discuss canceling emergency operations. Thank you.
Len Matterman.
Yes, hi. My name is Len Matterman. I'm the CEO of the San Mateo County Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District, known as One Shoreline, in order to highlight the notion that no jurisdiction can address the climate change alone, and we're all in this together. No agency in the county faces greater climate threat than the Harbor District. Earlier this year, we did ask consultants, the smartest we know on this topic in this geographic area, to survey the connected climate vulnerability of the harbor, Princeton, Miramar, Highway 1, and beaches, and then develop high-level concepts to address this cross-jurisdictional challenge. These concepts have not come to the One Shoreline Board, and any criticism or appreciation of our study starts and stops with me. While there are many future concepts, some people have focused on moving or removing the outer breakwaters. That's fitting because we agree with Jim Pruitt when he said that the main issue in some areas is too much sand and some areas too little sand, and that the main cause of that is the outer breakwaters. That's why we informed the Harbor District staff 10 months ago of this study. And they responded to that information, and that Jim was the first stakeholder I met with to get feedback on these high-level concepts. Jim reiterated our key objectives: sustain the viability of the harbor long-term and identify adaptable line protection. I support your project to move sand to see how nature will then move it, because fighting with nature increasingly be difficult, expensive, and energy intensive, and we don't think it's a long-term solution. Part of the shoreline includes the harbor, city, county, state, federal areas needing protection. The threat is sea level rise in atmospheric rivers, not studies or concepts to reduce the impacts. I hope our study initiatives result in a serious collaborative planning for climate change. This challenge is too great for us to spend our time and energy on anything less. Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody for your comments. Any other commissioner comments on this item?
Nancy, yeah, just on one hand, I guess I'm really happy to see that San Mateo County has started to address sea level rise in a serious fashion by forming the Flood and Sea Level Rise Resilience Committee. Perhaps like everyone else, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of, or apparent lack of coordination on this subject with the Harbor District. But I think according to what Jim Pruitt has told us, these problems or issues are going to be ironed out in the future. So going forward, hopefully we can have no concerns.
Yeah, thank you. I see a couple of members of the public have their hands raised. Dylan Mora.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having this item on the agenda. My name is Dylan Mora. I'm a resident of Montera, surfer, and registered professional civil engineer who has worked on several sand backpassing projects at Ocean Beach. I'm just learning about this topic, so I'm not going to state any opinions or information. I just want to voice my support for the information that I do have right now and support of the dredging project. I understand it's not ideal. Ideally, you want nature to work by itself, but we've interrupted nature, and I think I know that this is done all over the world. It's done locally, and it works. It is a maintenance issue. It's not a one-time thing, and I hope that we continue to look at long-term solutions. And I will yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. William Balson.
Hi, I'm just going to complete a couple of thoughts on the survey that I conducted. I had ended with the idea that the respondents had a very high understanding of the impacts of the seawall built in the 60s, and particularly that removing the seawall would have the effect of significantly diminishing the eelgrass, which is a very high priority for the state of California to preserve, even where, as here, it's not a natural part of the environment of Pillar Point Harbor. However, only 21% of the Harbor Board's of the respondents were aware of the Harbor Board's plan to replenish sand at Surfers Beach using clean sand from the harbor and cultivating the eelgrass for its protection. And only 12% are aware that One Shoreline has begun developing plans to remove the seawall. The alternative to keep the seawall and rebuild Surfers Beach was preferred by 38%, while 15% preferred to remove the seawall and 17% preferred to build a larger seawall and harden Route 1. Doing nothing was only preferred by 5%, and some people indicated they wanted more information. I think it's important to note that only 15% preferred to remove the seawall. I'd like to make this study part of the public record. Additional information is available, including the questionnaire and the data collected by SurveyMonkey, and I can make that available to Jim. I should alert everybody that this survey was paid for by my campaign for City Council, Bill Balsam for City Council, Half Moon Bay, 2022.
Catherine Slater Carter.
Thank you. I agree with everyone who has spoken, even those who bring in opinions that perhaps are not in the main frame. And I want to thank One Shoreline for taking a look at some of the problems that are a part of the Harbor District. I think that getting rid of the breakwater is not a good idea. I think what the Harbor District has spent lots of money, time, and community effort on is certainly the way to go. But in looking at old maps and photos of the harbor, there used to be a huge flow of fresh water into the harbor too. And that's not happening. It's been taken up by undergrounding creeks and pulling water out for domestic use and so on and so forth. I would like to see the Harbor District establish a relationship with One Shoreline where we can work together on improving the harbor and continuing on to make it a better place, like the eelgrass effort that is going on. The harbor is a critical place. It has such a long history. It could be actually declared a historic resource. But that said, let's work together with the local agencies instead of springing surprises on us. I think that's the natural way that things work best. Thank you.
I don't see any other members of the public, but Commissioner Chen-Crowley, your hand is up.
Thank you. So I appreciate everyone who's made comments here today, and I do support working collaboratively, which is the reason I'm a little disappointed in how this whole process has, culminated into even having to put on a special meeting agenda or put out a special meeting agenda. I want to make it very clear. My understanding is that 10 months ago, I think there was a study session that does not cut it for collaboration for me as an elected member of the Harbor Board. We are an elected body. I know that the enabling legislation that created One Shoreline, the spirit of that legislation it wants all of the agencies to work collaboratively together. And I don't think that this has happened. I'm glad we're having the discussion. Jim, thank you very much for briefing us for the first time as an entire board where we can take public comment, which I think is crucial. I think that moving forward, we have to keep in mind that the harbor is a harbor of safe refuge, and it is vital to the local economy and to people who live in the harbor. Our tenants, our liveaboards, are people who may not be able to afford any place else to live. Our small businesses depend on the harbor. The commercial fishing industries, tens of millions of dollars that are brought into the county economy. And quite frankly, the harbor, whatever attraction it brings, it's a lot of tourists, spills over to the Half Moon Bay local economy as well. So we're looking at so many benefits from the harbor. And while I understand that there's a long-term need that One Shoreline wants to advocate for, I think one of the best ways to do this, and I know that One Shoreline is looking at infrastructure and fortification of infrastructure, maybe One Shoreline should have the discussion to help fund our seawall, which is 60 years old and was built by the Army Corps of Engineers. So, if One Shoreline would like to work collaboratively on finding a solution, and I believe the long-term solution is the livelihood of residents of Half Moon Bay and the coast side, the mid coast, and actually San Mateo County, because the economy benefits from the harbor, then I would welcome that discussion. But to even suggest, without even talking to the harbor district and the elected harbor board, because I don't think the folks on One Shoreline are elected to even discuss harbor board and harbor district issues, then I welcome that discussion to move forward on how One Shoreline can support the dredging of the harbor and the and how they can help us fund that and whatever fortification we need for the outer breakwater. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang-Crawley. I agree with your comments wholeheartedly. Are there any other commissioner comments on this item? Commissioner Lorenas.
Hey, thank you. There's so much to say here. But first, I have a few questions for Mr. Latterman, if I may. So question number one, I keep hearing the word consultants. It'd be nice to know who these consultants are. If that's possible, you could answer that question.
I think Jim can answer that.
Jim, can you answer that, or do you know?
You're asking for the name of the consultant which they contracted?
Yeah.
I did not see that in the briefing materials that I read online.
Oh, I apologize. I thought it was our, well, all right. Perhaps Mr. Matterman is available to answer that question. Is he still online?
Yep, I'll allow him to talk.
Thanks. Although, this gets tricky. Tricia, is there any problem here with the commissioner speaking directly to a member of the public on this item?
No, it's at your discretion if you want to have somebody from the public answer questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for that question. Our consultant is a firm known as ESA. And again, what they produced are high-level concepts. It's not a project. It's not a specific plan. Yeah. That's what they did.
Yeah, I've got a few more questions for you. Sure. Online. So I thought I heard you say that one of the aspects of the consultant's work is that they will present several options or solutions, and that they're not necessarily advocating for one. Is that correct?
There are several components, or I don't know, concepts behind. Basically, we asked them the question, how do we sustain the viability of the assets long-term, period? And that includes the harbor. It also includes Princeton, Miramar, Highway 1, and beaches. right? And they came up with a suite of concepts that could be implemented over time, or they don't have to be implemented altogether. And the idea is that we take those concepts and we start shopping it around to the key stakeholders. The first key stakeholder that we shopped it to was the Harbor District.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, because it doesn't make sense that they would offer one concept and that's it, especially with a problem this size. There is many possible solutions. So I've got another question for you.
Sure.
When will One Shoreline present their results, and will the consultants present the work? Because that's important to our public.
Well, I mean, the phase we're in now is outreach to the key stakeholders like Jim. And so we want to talk to other stakeholders, get input. And we already got Jim Pruitt's input. We want to get the input of other key folks. That includes all the levels of government that are in that small area, city, county, state, and feds, and then refine things. And then we could probably come and do some sort of presentation to the Harbor District Board if that's desired by the board.
Well, as you probably imagine from the number of people that are on this meeting and what every member of the public seems to be saying, and I completely agree with them, is that it'd be worthwhile to include them in this process. And so
sure.
Going from, but what I'm hearing is this is a top-down operation. You're going to talk to our general manager, and then at some point, we're going to be handed the results of these conversations. And so why not include the public?
Well,
so
I mean,
the consultants have already laid out what their ideas are about the possible solutions in Princeton. It'd be nice for our public to hear what they have to say.
Sure. I'd be glad to do it.
Okay, that would be great. So moving on then. So maybe I can ask you and our general manager, Mr. Pruitt, to have conversations and then bring those conversations to our public in a timely manner, because apparently that didn't happen. I'm not sure what happened, but the communication seemed to be completely missing. And as far as having an emergency meeting or discussion of this concept, that also was a failure. And I think that was a failure on our side, because we should never have had a special meeting in such short notice. In fact, when the notice came out to the public, we were less than 24 hours, which is not correct. And also, we have over time established a very strong social media presence. That should have been the venue for discussing, or at least letting the public know that One Shoreline was having a meeting where Pillar Point was going to be discussed. And so my point in saying that is that we have this social media that is a venue for the district to inform the public on key points on One Shoreline as they progress. With respect to some of these ideas, I would say that getting rid of the outer breakwaters, it's just going to move the problem from Surfers Beach side to Princeton. And so I'm sure the folks in Princeton, as you can see from the number of people that are here, will have very strong feelings about that. Let's see. I support everything that the public has been saying. We don't always see eye to eye, but in this case, we have a very, very strong consensus that getting rid of the harbor is not a great idea. And I imagine that our consultants have some other ideas on how to preserve the seascape going south of the harbor. And I would also posit this, that whatever we do with respect to sand replenishment, there is not going to be enough sand coming from the harbor to help erosion downstream of of Pillar Point Harbor. And so I would like to hear from the consultants what the other potential options are to protect the shoreline, because we're not just talking about the processes that we're seeing here now, but we're also talking about increased weather hazards and increased sea level rise. So I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Nancy, you're on mute.
I'm going to say that I disagree with Commissioner Lorenas that calling a special meeting was inappropriate. The facts at our fingertips were exactly the reason that an agency like ours would call a special meeting. The meeting was called to inform the board about the fact that One Shoreline had on its agenda an item to discuss removing the outer shoreline, the outer breakwater. I imagine the majority of commissioners appreciated the fact that the general manager had information for us which was time sensitive, and that was the reason for the special meeting. And in fact, I believe that the reason that Mr. Matterman removed the agenda item from his agency was that our special meeting was called to discuss that problem. Commissioner Chang Crawley?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, I agree with you, President Reitering, about calling of the special meeting. This was a very time-sensitive situation, and I want to thank you and Jim for working to call this special meeting that, yeah, maybe it wasn't perfect, but let me just say this. It allowed the issue to be transparent and out in the public realm. Yeah. I learned about this agenda item the Friday before the Monday meeting that was called, special meeting that was called by you, President Reitering. And it's very unfair to the public, and especially to the Harbor Board, who did not know that this item was going to be on the One Shoreline agenda that Monday at 4 p.m., which means to me that it was never discussed. This is the first time, let me just say this. This meeting right now on this topic is the first time that the entire Harbor Board, an elected body to deal with Harbor District issues, has been informed and briefed about what is going on, okay? And so when the general manager doesn't even know that the Harbor District is on an agenda that is not our agenda, that's not even called by an elected body, that's a problem for me. That means that the members of our public who care so much about the harbor don't even understand what's going on. So this got out into the press, and which is unfortunate because the press only has so much space, but I am glad it's out in the public realm. So thank you, Nancy and Jim and Melanie, for trying your best to get this out in the public realm so that it is transparent. Now, Jim, I have a question for you. In the attachment or in the attachments for your staff report on this item, you referenced the One Shoreline report and that ESA was the consultant and that they are also our consultant. Is that true? And they've been our consultant for how long?
ESA has been our consultant and currently our consultant on projects.
So I want to, and I understand that maybe part of some of the information that ESA gave to One Shoreline is probably public information. But did you know that ESA was collaborating with One Shoreline about the Harbor District's project?
I was not aware of that contract.
And dredging mainly. Did ESA inform you of that?
ESA, no.
Okay, great. So at least they're trying to be as open as possible. So that's helpful. But anyway, that's all I have for now. I am just trying to listen and take in all this information, so I may have some more comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Lorenas.
Yes, thank you. Notwithstanding the hidden reprimands coming from the board president, I'd like to say that having a special meeting in short notice was a violation of the Brown Act, and you can ask our attorney that question. And number two, it would have been a simple, much easier way to get this going, to present this information in online with our online presence, wait to have the right information and have the meeting that we're having now instead of sending out misinformation that seemed to happen in the public. Another point is that I'm very happy that One Shoreline is using ESA because they are excellent consultants, and I'm sure they're going to do great work.
You want to take your hand down, or are you done? Commissioner Chang Crowley.
So I agree with Ed that our social media presence is very strong, but I think that for us to be as transparent as possible as a public agency and an elected body to deal with Harbor District issues, that we should be using every way of communication to the public as possible. And I know that our staff will do that. So thank you, Jim, for taking all of this input in from the commissioners. I think it's important. But I still stand by the fact that Commissioner Meyering or President Meyering did the right thing by calling the meeting. I do also believe and agree with her that, and actually, I think Debbie Ruddock, the mayor of Half Moon Bay, even said this, that, you know, as soon as they saw our notice, that they asked, or she asked Lynn Matterman to remove the item for discussion at their meeting. And I attended the meeting, the One Shoreline meeting, and they did remove that. And that's why we were able to cancel our meeting. And actually special meetings are for emergencies. And yes, they require 24 hours notice. So I don't know what happened, Ed. I haven't even talked to the general manager about that. But I will say this, that the purpose of a special meeting is for an emergency. And I believe this was a time sensitive situation. And I'm glad that the president called the special meeting. So thanks, Nancy. I think transparency is so crucial right now because the outer breakwater in the harbor affects so many different aspects of the coast.
All right, well, thank you everybody for your comments. And I want to thank you again, Mr. Pruitt, for your eagle eye and catching this One Shoreline agenda item and for presenting to us today and keeping the board and the public informed, and as you always do. I don't see any other hands raised, so we're going to move on to item number 11, which is Oyster Cove Marina temporary relocation of liveaboards. And Mr. Pruitt, this is your item again.
Again, afternoon, commissioners. This item 11, discusses the help the Harbor District has provided with the liveaboard tenants of Oyster Cove with temporary moorage for the 2022-2023 winter storm season. This is a great example of government agencies working together to help the citizens of San Mateo County. Earlier this year, the tenants of Oyster Cove Marina, which is located just yards from Oyster Point Marina, were told that the marina was closing and they would have to vacate. Most tenants moved their vessels from Oyster Cove, but several liveaboard tenants remained in the marina without any option to move their vessels. Both the tenants in the city of South San Francisco contacted the Harbor District to inquire if the Harbor District could host the remaining liveaboards and their vessels at Oyster Point Marina. At that time, Oyster Point Marina had already had 40 liveaboard vessels, representing 10% of the total slips, which and the cap of liveaboards as set by the BCDC. Both the tenants in the city were told by the district that unless BCDC increased the percentage of liveaboards, Oyster Point Marina could not assist with the liveaboard tenants. Next, the city manager approached the Harbor District and asked the Harbor District if the Harbor District would support temporary moorage for the liveaboard if BCD allowed for it. Given we had the space for the vessels and the ability to host the Oyster Cove tenants, the city manager and Harbor District would be supportive. City then approached BCDC and in the end got BCDC to agree for a short-term non-enforcement of the 10% cap on liveaboards at Oyster Point Marina. As of October 17th, 2022, 39 vessels from Oyster Cove have passed a material seaworthy inspection conducted by the Harbor District. And we were surprised that the overall conditions were good of those vessels. 11 have paid the liveaboard status, a fee for liveaboard status. 10 more vessels are scheduled for inspection, and 8 have incomplete applications that we're working with. One vessel did not pass inspection, and the city of San Francisco is trying to help out that individual. All vessels from Oyster Cove and moored at Oyster Point must actively seek another location for their vessels as required by the city, BCDC, and the Harbor District. From the Harbor's perspective, if the vessel does not depart before April 1st, 2023, or have a verifiable plan to depart the harbor within the next few months, the vessel will be ordered out of the harbor due to that fact. And that concludes my briefing on that, pending any questions. But to close that, one more comment is, it's been a very positive experience so far dealing with the Oyster Cove residents. They've been proactive in getting us the information we need and allowing access to do the inspections of their vessels.
I want to thank you, Jim, for organizing this so well. I had quite a lot of outreach from liveaboards who were impacted by the closure, and I'm really proud of the way the district handled it. Thank you. Any commissioner comments or public comment? I don't see any public members of the public online right now.
Nancy, I'd just like to also compliment Jim for the way he's handled this. I think it's gone as smoothly as could be anticipated.
Yeah.
All credit goes to staff and Harbor Master James Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys are the best. Commissioner Lorenas?
Thank you. I'd just like to point out to the public and to our staff and commissioners that this is a problem that was created by the city of South San Francisco running roughshod over the tenants at Oyster Cove. And I'm grateful that the district can help these people out, but I'm not convinced of a few things. Number one, a year is going to go by awfully quickly for these folks. Is the city of South San Francisco going to help them find other places for their liveaboards? This is a potential homeless problem for some of these folks. So that's number one. It seems to me that there is an opportunity to negotiate with the city of South San Francisco since we are helping them solve a problem they created. The other aspect of this is that, as we all know, I know that the tenants that are being relocated really have no choice on the matter at this point. But one thing we do know from our experience here at Pillar Point is that you can't just, because of the way the law works, we can't just tell someone to leave and then force them to leave. And if you have any doubts about that, just look out at Pillar Point Harbor and you see that tug sitting there. I'm sure staff tried every possible option to get rid of those guys and we couldn't get rid of them. And so I would say that, again, this is an opportunity to negotiate with the city of South San Francisco to make sure they help these folks find a place within a year, and then also to make sure that the plan as it was just described actually happens. It shouldn't fall on our staff alone. This is not a problem we created. I appreciate that the work you guys have done to get it this far, but it's not over yet.
Commissioner Ryring, would permission to address the questions?
Yes, of course.
Commissioner Lorenas, those are very good questions, and I should have covered them in my brief. Yes, South San Francisco is being very proactive, and they're personally engaged with each one of the owners that are moving over, and they will be throughout the winter to help them or assist them in locating new accommodations or either on the water or off the water. So yes, they are very involved, and they're going to continue to work with each individual boater to find an alternate. We do not expect every boat that we just accepted to still be there on October 1st of 2023. And the role of the Harbor District thus far has been inspecting the vessels as we would inspect any vessel wanting to moor at our facility, and getting all the paperwork and collecting all the fees. We won't be engaged in them finding new homes.
I have one last question for you, if I may.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the year, if we aren't complying with the BCDC's percentages, have there been discussions with BCDC to get some help with that? Because like I said, we can't just shove people out, and I'm not sure we'd want to.
That's why the Harbor District set April 1st as a deadline to have a plan, because that gives us time to work with the vessel before the October 1st deadline. And we definitely would be already started on vessels that we were concerned with before that April 1st deadline. We're not going to show up on the April 1st and demand their plan. We'll definitely be reviewing it as it goes to make sure they're working towards a goal.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments on this item? I see a member of the public, Christina Fernandez, has her hand raised. Christina, go ahead, please. Christina, are you still online?
Yes, I am. Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. I'm actually traveling right now, and I apologize. I just wanted to thank, I think the city of South San Francisco just really appreciates General Manager Pruitt and the board's support of allowing displaced Oyster Cove Marina residents to come over to Oyster Point. It truly was a collaborative humanitarian effort, and for that we are deeply appreciative. Regarding sort of, next steps, the city is working on hiring a relocation expert to assist. We currently have a case manager in-house who is working with each resident, as Jim mentioned, but we are in the process of putting out an RFP for a relocation expert, so that we're hoping that that relocation expert can then, really truly understand each individual's needs and hopefully find them some permanent housing. And with that, we just wanted to express our gratitude and let you know that we are most definitely going to continue trying to find solutions for those folks. So thank you.
And Commissioner Chang-Crowley, you have your hand up next.
Yeah, I just want to thank Ed for bringing up these issues that are actually kind of hard to talk about. So Ed, thank you. I actually agree and had the same concerns. So Jim, if you can just keep us apprised of what's happening and all the work that you're doing with South San Francisco, that would be great. Thanks.
Great. It looks like that is it for this agenda item. And General Manager Pruitt has asked that we remove item number 12 for discussion at a later date. So we're going to be moving to item number 13, Coastside Maritime Search and Rescue Funding. Mr. Pruitt.
Jim, you're muted.
And I was saying such wonderful things. Good afternoon. This concerns a resolution from the board that would direct the general manager to contact other agencies with respect in cities with respect to funding for search and rescue. As briefed last month, we are significant over budgeted or under budgeted for search and rescue, which has resulted in our inability to cover search and rescue 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want to make one correction to my staff report, and it says in the background that the Coast Guard search and rescue falls under the responsibility of several agencies and jurisdictions. That should read responsibility or area or interested parties as opposed to just responsibilities. So it'd be responsibility or interested parties. And I'll update the staff report online. With that, certain agencies are responsible for search and rescue and some are interested in. And again, I think it's valuable for the board to set a resolution which backs or supports the general manager going out and requesting support for the search and rescue program. Other jurisdictions on the California coast, local jurisdictions support the Harbor District for search and rescue. And I think San Mateo County Harbor District should be treated no different from supporting agencies. So with that, I'm asking for a recommended motion of approve resolution number 2227, directing the general manager to contact and work with the County of San Mateo, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, and the City of Half Moon Bay to seek and identify additional funding to support the San Mateo County District's Maritime Search and Rescue Program on the San Mateo County coastline.
I'll move to approve that.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Is there any board discussion? I do see a couple of members of the public with their hand raised. Rossiter or maybe Kay Rossiter.
Hi, this is Kate Rossiter. I'm the shop steward for Pillar Point Harbor with OE3. And the union is concerned about this item or this discussion point, actually. We would like to strike this staff report from the meeting. We feel that there are many inaccuracies in the representation of the facilities, the costs, and other statements that misrepresent our SAR stance and the resources that it requires. So historically, we have over 40 years of providing this service with few incidents. We're not actually aware of any incident that negatively impacts harbor maintenance or vessel assist or SAR in the recent history. So we're not sure why this has changed in the past couple of months. I just want to note that all the vessels that we use here at Pillar Point Harbor specifically are primarily used for harbor maintenance, hazardous response, marine mammal rescue, dockage. We move boats to different slips with these vessels, and this is a revenue source. Vessel assists provide a lot of revenue, and this includes vessels that drag anchor in the outer harbor, vessels that need to use the hoist to replace engines, and so on. Our operational staff here are in support of the general manager going for more money, but there's definitely no need to reduce public safety while we are waiting for funds. And I would like to further comment on the removal of 2226 from this meeting. Firstly, we have lost 2 deputy harbor masters here at Pillow Point. One of them was the Officer of the Year recently, Bobby Dunn. So we are going down to 10 DHMs, and we had put forth a 12-hour shift proposal to help manage overtime levels. And we really hope for this to go forward in the future. We are not sure why this was struck from the meeting, and we want this to be a discussion point.
You're mute.
John Ullum, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, President Ray. It is surprising how fast this came about. As she had mentioned, the Harbor District's been doing this for decades upon decades. Furthermore, the Harbor District has experienced 12 straight years of record revenue growth from property taxes that the Harbor District receives to do its job. So why all of a sudden this came up this fast and without any kind of discussion beforehand, really, and during the budget cycles and stuff like that, all of a sudden this shows up. Why wasn't this accounted for when you were making your budget? What changed? It should be noted that you're asking other agencies for money, but you failed to notify those agencies that you were discussing them today, which is kind of hypocritical when compared to the outrage that's being shown earlier. These, for some reason, you've neglected to mention the Coastside Fire Protection District, which has more money than it knows what to do with. And as Commissioner Shane Corrali will tell you, the fire district that she serves, the board she serves on, they have a water rescue team. So why are we not asking the fire department, for example, to contribute towards search and rescue operations for the harbor district? It seems like this was a really sloppily thought out plan, and for something that is so critical to the harbor district existence. Finally, it should be noted that the harbor district subsidizes the operations of South San Francisco to the tune of well over $2 million per year, and implies infrastructure for SSS that does not control. Yet now it's asking other agencies to subsidize its primary reason for existence.
You're muted, Nancy.
Commissioner Lorenas, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Well, where to start? The first thing I'd like to say is that this is a complex problem, and it's been intertwined with staffing issues as well as safe search and rescue, and also boundaries with respect to where our Harbor Patrol folks can actually safely do search and rescue. And so we have a very complicated topic here. And I tend to agree to some extent with our union representative. It is a surprise that this came up very quickly, and I would like to have allowed this topic to be discussed with respect to the previous agenda item, because it's important to get that going. As she said, we're low on staff, so I'm not clear why that was dropped. It's unfortunate, I think, with all due respect. And I would like to say to staff that since I'm a commissioner, I'm not privy to all the conversations that our staff have with respect to this topic. So we have a narrow window, and that is through these meeting possible discussions with our general manager. I would like to know more about this. So I'm not sure what the venue is. Maybe put this as a topic more broadly for an agenda. I believe that we do need to have, and maybe this is something that Jim, you could do for us at some point, is clarify what our search and rescue, how our search and rescue operations work with respect to the rules of that you have set down for our staff, because your experience with the Coast Guard is very important in this, and I have faith that you'll make it very safe for our staff, but at the same time, it will help the public understand how these staffing issues work with respect to safety, because you can have one guy go out and do a rescue, and that's not safe for them, but there's a lot more to it than just that. And I'm hoping that this discussion will result in our staff being satisfied with whatever the solutions are, and us, the public, commissioners and the public, eventually knowing how all this really works. And with respect to funding, I agree with members of the public that suggested that we should bring in the fire district. They're a first responder that is very important on the coast side, and we should not only ask them for money, but also continue to work with them. Okay, I think that's it for me.
Nancy, can I make a quick comment?
Yep, Commissioner Chen Crawley.
So I want to thank Jim for starting this conversation. I'm not sure, I mean, maybe Coastside Fire was inadvertently omitted from this. So Jim, I trust that you will bring in all the relevant stakeholders for a search and rescue organization, which has its own guidelines and standards. And these guidelines and standards were outlined in a report, an extensive staff report in October 2021 at that board meeting at that time. So if anyone is interested in looking at that report, it is on the website. And Jim did an outstanding job in outlining what is defined as a search and rescue organization, the requirements for training, and all the other things, that the different levels. So I mean, I can't remember everything you put in there, Jim, but I remember that it was very extensive. So thank you. This is not a new topic of discussion. This has been discussed for over a year, and I appreciate that Jim's taking this to bringing this to us. And Jim, whatever stakeholders you think should be in there, and you may have inadvertently left out Coastside Fire, but Coastside Fire doesn't have a water rescue program. We are the water rescue crew that does the work on the harbor. And so I want to thank the crew for doing all that great work too. It's not easy. But thanks for bringing this to the meeting today, Jim.
Yeah, I just want to say that I see this agenda item as the culmination of a lot of work and many presentations that have come before this board in the last year. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I follow the thread and I support it. Mr. Pruitt, you have your hand raised.
I want to clarify the resolution. The direction in the resolution directs the general manager. It says, shall contact external agencies and cities to seek funding required to support Harbor District search and rescue capabilities on the coast side. So you're going to give me, if approved, gives me direction and authority to reach out to any agency that I, as a general manager, think could help us out. And the second is, it says specifically, reach out to the County of San Mateo, the Sheriff's Office in Half Moon Bay. We can amend that and add Coastside Fire and then get signature on that if that makes the board more comprehensive on that. But item number 1 in the agenda on the draft resolution does give me the authority to go and speak with Coastside Fire.
Yeah, I think just go with I already made the motion based on that. So you've got the leeway to do that, right? Based on the motion, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mateo, you have your hand raised?
I'm supportive of going ahead. We don't want to get paralyzed by inaction, and we've got to start somewhere. The other thing is, I don't know if we have to be too specific. Our general manager knows his job quite well. If you're going to say Coastside Fire, why aren't you saying South San Francisco Fire? There's a lot of small agencies that we overlap, and I see no reason why General Manager Pruitt wouldn't cast the widest net.
Yeah, I agree. Commissioner Arenas, you have got your hand up.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Tom. I agree with you. I think that the wider the net, the better, and I'm sure our general manager will do that. The reason highlighting our Coastside Fire District is because they are the first responders on our coast over here. The other point I'd like to make is that while we have these reports from Jim on search and rescue, which are really excellent, but we also need, and it's highlighted from the comments from staff in this meeting, is that we need to see how the requirements of search and rescue coincide with our staffing. And that's why our GM is asking, our GM is asking for funding for this. And it's not clear to some of the public and maybe even some of our staff why we need more funding. And so that's the reason for my comment. And I'm hoping that as we move along, we'll see it a little more clearly.
We have a member of the public, JAC, with your hand raised.
You should be able to speak, but can't hear you.
Are you there, JAC? Their hand is down, so maybe they no longer have a comment. All right, we do have a motion and second on the table, and I think, Melanie, at this time we can take roll call.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Chan Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
President Ryan?
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke?
Aye.
The motion carries. And we will move on to item number 14, commercial activity permit waivers for nonprofits. Jim Pruitt, this is your item.
Once again, good afternoon. Item 13 concerns permit fee waivers for nonprofit organizations. At the last board meeting, a few commissioners requested a brief on this topic. So and this is that brief that based on that request. Per district policy as published in policy 4.5.1, permit applicants must pay the application fee established by the San Mateo County Harbor District event fee schedule. The event fee schedule is approved and published annually by the board. And in footnote 3 of the fee schedule, it provides the general manager the ability to waive fees up to and including $2,500 for nonprofit coastal dependent applications. Any request to waive fees above $2,500, it has been the practice of the Harbor District to forward that request to the board for consideration. In total, the district has waived over $62,000 between the years of 2017 and 2021. The organizations that have received waivers in the past several years include Oyster Point Dragons, 4 events, Coastside Fishing Club, 8 events, Wave Chaser Paddle Series, 2 events, Half Moon Bay Commercial Fisheries Trust, 6 events, Gray Harbor Historical Society, 1 event, Polynesian Voyaging Society, 2 events, and Dolphin South and Runners Club, 1 event. I also want to note that the Wave Chaser Paddleboard Series, in which the fee was not waived by the board of last board or 2 board meetings ago, they decided not to hold their event based on that. That's my report, pending any questions.
You're on mute, Nancy.
We have a member of the public with their hand raised, John Ullum.
Thank you, President Rearing. I noticed that there are no references to the waiving of fees for Maverick surf operations or competitions. I guess I'm assuming that's because it's a for-profit operation. So I'm wondering if, since you're looking at this, do you have any idea how many fees have been waived for for-profit organizations when using the Harbor District facilities to promote their various causes? Thank you.
Are there any commissioner comments on this item? If not, I'll move on next to item number 15, declare tug vessel Caleb abandoned property pursuant to Harbors and Navigation Code Section 522. Mr. Pruitt.
Good afternoon. Once again, the tug vessel Caleb has a long history in Pillar Point Harbor, beginning in 2017, when the vessel was allowed to enter Pillar Point Harbor seeking safety from dangerous sea states. The vessel should have departed once the weather lifted, but the owners refused and the vessel remained and became a hazard to the harbor. In May 2022, the vessel sank in the outer harbor where it remains. Over the past several months, the district has made multiple attempts to contact the owners without success. The owners have been unresponsive and vacant from Pillar Point since March 2022, abandoning the vessel in the harbor. Pursuant to Harbor Navigation Code 522, a sunken vessel that are allowed to remain on publicly owned submerged lands in an unseaworthy or dilapidated condition for longer than 30 days without watchmen are abandoned property. Section 522 further states that the district must adopt a resolution expressing the lack of consent for the property to be declared abandoned within its jurisdiction in order to take title to the vessel for the purpose of removal, destruction, or other abatement. The attached resolution has been drafted in accordance with Section 522 and does declare the vessel abandoned. And staff recommends the board approve the following motion. Approve the attached resolution 2228, declaring the tug vessel Caleb, which is currently sunk in the outer anchorage at Pillar Point Harbor, is abandoned property. Any questions? That's my brief.
Commissioner Lorenas, your hand is up.
Yes, I'd just like to suggest that you change the board president name. It has Virginia Chan Crawley as the board president in the resolution. At least my copy of it does.
Thanks, Ed. I'd like that change too.
Correct that typo. Thank you.
I move to approve 2228.
I'll second that.
If there's no further discussion, and I don't see any hands up, Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Jane Crawley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas?
Yes.
President Ryrie?
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke?
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
The motion carries. We are going to now move on to the pulled item number 6. Commissioner Chan Crawley, you asked to pull item 6 from the consent calendar.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Can y'all hear me? So, yeah. Jim, I just pulled this, and I think it was a typo in the marked up version, which is the first attachment of the 2 attachments. So if you look at if you go to the first attachment, which is the marked up version, the first page it starts off with statement of policy and then the subtitle of reporting of work-related injury. And after the first full paragraph, It says the employee's supervisor shall complete an incident report pertaining to events, et cetera, et cetera. So I know this is going to sound nitpicky, but I think it might be easy for, for clarification purposes, if we understood where the apostrophe is going to go. Is it S apostrophe for multiple employees or an apostrophe S for an individual employee, which based on the rest of the policy, it could be just an apostrophe S, but I just wanted clarification so that everyone knows what that means. And maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but that apostrophe S, I think, possesses as to who supervisor.
That's why punctuation exists.
Yeah. Do y'all see that? And I'm sure it was a typo. So
yeah, in there.
Thank you for pointing that out, but I'll change that.
So is it an apostrophe S or S apostrophe?
It's an apostrophe S.
Okay.
I guess there could be multiple employees in one instance, but it would always be the employee supervisor. So
okay,
I think it should be apostrophe S.
Okay, thanks for fixing that. But that's really all that I had. Just to make that correction for more clarity, I think. So, I'm happy to make the motion to approve the revision to policy 6.4.13 workers' compensation.
With that, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Great. I don't see any hands up. So Melanie, roll call on this item, please.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
President Ryrie?
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke?
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Chan-Corrali?
Aye.
Great. With that, we're going to head into closed session now for conference with legal counsel. I think everybody has their link. I hope so. I
Recording stopped.
Well, it does not matter whether you agree, Ms. Corrali. I, in fact, did raise my hand immediately upon the completion for the vote for the prior item. And as usual, President Raring isn't paying attention nor doing her job well. The reason I'm trying to comment on this item is as you hold this closed session portion of your meetings at the completely worst possible time for the people who are attending. You still have an opportunity for commissioner comments. You still have an opportunity for commissioners to allow items on the agenda. You still have activity reports that could be heard from general manager and the operations administration and an administrative report. So these are a whole bunch of key items to your meeting that you deny access to all the people who are your public, who you work for. I don't understand why you continue to do it that way. Every other agency either puts their closed sessions at the end of the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting. There's no reason for you to put it in the middle of the meeting except to discourage public comment and to discourage people from hearing anything that the commissioners might want to talk about in the freehand moment that they have, the 2 minutes that you allow such on this agenda. This is wrong. You need to stop acting this way, Ms. Raring. It's a stain on your honor. It's a stain on your reputation. I don't understand why you won't get your act together and understand that the public has the right to participate, whether you like it or not. You need to start paying attention. It's unbelievable that you had to call this meeting back into form. If I had just given up like I should have, I would have just hung up on you guys and you wouldn't be able to get me back in here and you would now have a Brown Act violation on your hands because you would have denied me the opportunity to speak to an agendized item. Get your act together. Thank you.
I think we're headed into closed session now.
And I did resend the link to everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much. I got it. All right, I'm leaving and we're going to closed session.
Recording stopped.
True.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just happens to be the room where we've got our modem, so this is where I get the best reception. So.
Okay, everybody, I'm gonna push record again.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Melanie. So we are back in open session and have nothing to report from the closed session conference with legal counsel. We are on item number F, commissioner comments. Are there any public statements by commissioners? Commissioner Jane Corrali. You're muted.
Hold on, sorry. Okay, so really quickly, I attended the Mavericks Festival on October 1st, and I thought it was a huge success. And I want to thank the staff who went into overdrive. They were outstanding. I think there were a few thousand people who really enjoyed being at the harbor. And I just thought it was a great community event. So Jim, would you please thank the staff for all their hard work on this? I mean, I really just thought it was great, and I have only heard positive feedback. Also, I attended with the general manager the conference, the CMAC conference. CMAC is, it's like California. Don't tell me, Jim. I have it here. Hold on. It's the California Marine Affairs and Navigation Conference, which was in South San Francisco. And we did a great presentation there. I was able to at least open up the conference with just some comments about the Harbor District and all the things that, you know, we do and what it, you know, what the harbor means to the local communities on the mid-coast, really pretty much the coast side. So Jim, thank you. And Nancy and Bill, I think that y'all weren't able to fill in. So
yeah, I wasn't able to make it.
Yeah.
Right,
So
thanks for attending.
Yeah. So as the past president, Jim asked me if I would make comments, and I did. And I thought they were well received, but Jim's presentation was really great as well. Carol Matsumoto, formerly of the South San Francisco City Council, was there in attendance to listen to our, mainly Jim's presentation. And she was very encouraged and inspired. And I'm hoping that she'll support us in, you know, looking for funding as well. But I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. And, you know, Jim, if you talk to the Honorable Carol Matsumoto, please let us know.
Virginia?
Yes.
I did actually have an opportunity to talk to Carol as well, and she was very supportive and is going to try and work with a number of the county supervisors on that.
Okay, thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you for attending. I wanted to ask if there's any I guess I'll wait till possible future agenda items. Any other commissioner comments? If not, we'll move to possible future agenda items. I don't see any hands raised, but Jim, I wanted to talk to you. I've shared with you a little bit about concern from a member or two of the public regarding surrendering flares. It's been really difficult for boaters to find ways to safely get rid of their flares. And is this something the Harbor District can help move forward?
The movements of flares or the disposal of flares is a national issue for the United States. We don't have a good system, and I've been involved with it for many years. We just simply don't have a good system because they're considered explosives to get rid of them. So I do have a member of the public who contacted me with that concern, and we're looking into what the realm of the possibility is to dispose of explosives, maybe have another flare round up in the harbor so that they can collect those flares, and maybe have it on a regularly scheduled time annually to get rid of expired flares. So we are looking into it and working on this topic. And if you're interested in a full brief, I'm more than happy to provide it.
Okay, we can talk about that before the end of the year, depending on how full the agendas are. Let's see, anybody else? Virginia Chang Crawley.
Yes. So, Jim, today we had an item on the agenda regarding fee waivers for nonprofits. And so I just, do you think we should bring this back to have a more robust discussion for policies in general? Or do you think, I don't know, it just seems like we need to probably look at this issue more closely for fee waivers in general, not even just for nonprofits.
Yeah, it seems like the policies are in place, but that the board pretty consistently undercuts the policies.
If I may, the topic was just a brief, and the time to change the fee schedule and possibly the waiver of fees is when the board considers the fee waiver in the budget process.
So can I ask you a question regarding this? And I'm not trying to go back to an item, but I'm using this as an example. When that, I can't remember which organization wanted a fee waiver and they didn't get it. Do we have any idea how much that cost the Harbor District besides the fee waiver? I'm just trying to understand the larger scale impact from a macroeconomic perspective. I mean,
we're
we'll
in
never
for future agenda items right now, Commissioner Crawley.
Okay, yeah,
that agenda items was open and closed.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to overstep, sorry. But I do think it warrants a discussion this, and then I guess when we deal with the next budget. But I just wanted to express my concerns about that.
Do we still feel like we're getting our $5,000 a month out of California Consulting?
Oh, yeah.
Is that worth a discussion, or is staff and administration satisfied with how things are working at the present moment?
Didn't we have a time limit on that? Were we, Jim, am I remembering correctly? Did we say we're going to keep them on through the end of the year and look at it again? Or what did, I kind of thought we gave it like 6 months at the beginning of the year. Kind of lost track.
It's an annual contract, and if the board would like to receive a report and actionable item on votes out of the 5 to bring it back as an agenda item.
Should we, and we can do that right now? All right, let's see a show of hands here.
To bring back the
yeah, to take a look at that contract. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay, you've got it, Jim.
Yeah, the only reason I bring this up is we're paying $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
They're bringing us a few, but it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's like the boat destruction thing. We get that whether they help us sign the paper or not.
Is anybody else interested in hearing more about the flare disposal program or what we might be able to do? Is that worth having on the agenda?
You know, there's numerous organizations throughout the Bay Area, and as former Captain Pruitt put it, it's a national issue. I've been working on this for over 10 years. I've been in touch with people in Washington. I've been in touch with all our elected representatives here. I was real hot on promoting the last flare disposal event we had at Pillar Point Harbor. And there's a way to do it now. It's not as easy as it could be, but you simply take it into hazardous waste if it's handheld. If it's aerial, they call it an explosive. It has to go through the bomb squad, through the sheriff's department. And it was very easy for me to do that.
See, Tom, that's information that I don't have at my fingertips, and perhaps that should be on our website. So how many, let's see a show of hands for informational item on a future agenda to have Jim prepare, along with the idea of having whatever information we have at hand right now on our website.
Yeah.
Yep, Jim, you've got more direction.
Okay, got it.
Great, thank you, Jim. All right, anything else, anybody?
You have a member of the public that has a hand raised.
I see, Mr. Olam, you're up.
You guys aren't even sticking to your agenda. Are we on item F, commissioner comments? Or are we on item G, future agenda items? I heard a whole lot of discussion going on that was not part of the agenda. And I have had my hand up since before commissioner comments. So is that what we're on? Or did you blow me off for commissioner comments? Because I don't understand.
President Ryring, it would be appropriate to allow Mr. Olam to speak to either commissioner comments or to future agenda items if you'd like.
Have I been given permission? This is just another.
I think to make it clear, maybe we just restart. I'm going to recommend that we just restart the clock, allow Mr. Olam time to speak. If the president agrees, to allow Mr. Olam to speak to either of those items, since it seems that he was not clear which item he had an opportunity to speak on, would just make it very clear that he can speak to either of those items and have 2 minutes to do so.
For each item.
No, I think it could be 2 minutes for both. Yeah, not two separate.
Let's do it.
It's two separate items. How is it that you're going to, why don't you just group around 5 of them together and give me 2 minutes? This is another example of how I'm treated differently than other people, how favored people get all kinds of opportunities to speak and disfavored people don't. Again, I had my hand up prior to commissioner comments, and then I would have liked to speak to future agenda items. And I expect to speak to September activity reports. And if I felt like it, I would expect to be called during item G. It's an item on the agenda, or item I. It's an item on the agenda. I don't understand why you are playing this game, Ms. Ortiz. You know what's going on. You know that you had to call the meeting back into session because I was denied an opportunity to speak prior to closed session. Why is it that this district and this board is so afraid of public comment? Why is it that you have to keep reminding the board president to observe basic civil niceties that we have in our society? I don't get it. So what am I speaking to again? Is this item F or item G? Which item are we on? Or did we just go in between and just ignore people and then call them when there's no choice? Please tell me. Thank you.
All right, so let's see. I think we are probably looking for a motion to adjourn at this point.
So moved.
I'll second.
Before you do that, Mr. Olam hinted that he would want to comment on item number H. And maybe we should give him the opportunity to do that if he wishes to before we adjourn.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Zemke. As you can tell, your some of your fellow board members just don't think it's that big a deal that the meetings be held in a proper manner, that people be afforded proper opportunity to comment, whether Nancy or Virginia or Tom wants to hear it or not. It's just ridiculous that you keep playing this game. I expected to have 3 reports here that are from the operations and the management. I'd like to hear that discussed. I mean, it's pretty important, isn't it? Or do you guys just blow that stuff off? I mean, you spent about like 10 minutes talking about what Virginia wanted to talk about, even though she had only 2 minutes to say it. You enforce the rules that you feel like enforcing and don't enforce the ones that you don't. And you don't understand why this is a problem. When are we going to straighten this out? How are we going to straighten it out? I mean, this is a real simple thing. You give me my 2 minutes and I just say my piece and go on to the next thing. But you decide you don't want to hear it, and Nancy just decides to ignore it. And she's already blowing me off for item F. So that's, again, another Brown Act violation. And now I'm recording all this stuff in real time, so you can see my hands going up. And I know that Zoom has the ability to tell you in a report who had their hands up, when, and what. It'll be really clear to the DA that I am being consistently blown off, and the only way I can get the president to acknowledge me is to send emails to your attorney and to hope somebody like Mr. Zemke gives a damn. Thank you.
I'd like to find out if Mr. Ullum has something specific on a specific topic to address in 2 minutes. Could he let us know which topic he's going to comment on and then give him his 2 minutes?
I think he mostly wants to complain about me, but that's all right. That's my job. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, there's a hand up.
No. We actually do have a motion and a second to adjourn.
What happened to the operations report and the general manager's report?
Generally, they're available. They're pre-printed in the agenda for anybody to read at any time when they want.
Yeah, we usually.
Not making the case, but are we just going over it?
Well, you're welcome to. We usually skip over that because it's informational only, and I do my homework and I read it ahead, and I didn't have questions. If you do, please speak up.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from both Jim and John. So question number one, what's going on at the harbor now?
If you're referring to the barge and crane, yes. The district was notified, I think it was Friday last week or Thursday last week, that the Coast Guard would be coming in on Tuesday with that barge and that crane to replace the structure out there at the end of the breakwater, the entire foghorn structure with a brand new modern foghorn, which can better direct sound away from land and out to sea. And they should be done by the end of the week.
Great, thank you.
It should have been posted earlier in the notice to mariners and everything else, but for some reason it was not. And this was a great window for the Coast Guard to be able to come in and do that work.
Right, thank you. So one more comment on this putting this agenda item, the activity reports, at the end of the meeting and then just ignoring it. Why don't you just put it on the consent agenda, which would have the same thing and the public wouldn't expect to hear from it. It makes no sense to have it on the agenda if we're not going to discuss it. And Tom, I'd like to point out that, of course, I've read the darn reports, but the public may not.
And the one other project that you see when you enter the harbor is parking lot B is fenced off and construction has begun on the ADA restroom behind Catch Joanne restaurant. And we hope to see that completed on time, but it'll take several months to get done. One other thing I wanted to mention was we're getting ready to host a public workshop in the near future on the design and engineering of the possible new tenant building. And we'll be putting out information on that very, very soon. It won't happen for at least 2 or 3 weeks. so we can get the information out and publicize it. And it's going to be scheduled for 6 o'clock.
And how's it going with our tenants with the restroom design? Are they managing to stay open? I haven't been down to check.
I haven't been down either, but I've received comments from all the tenants that the construction supervisor down there is doing his best to work with them, and they have a very good working relationship. John can speak if the restaurant's still open.
Yes, the restaurant is still open, and as Jim, I've been there multiple times checking on the project as it progresses. And as Jim said, all the feedback I've gotten from all the retail restaurant owners and even their staff has been very positive. They're working very closely, and all notifications of any outages are made well in advance. So they're really, it's going quite smooth.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Are there any hands raised that aren't coughing violently?
Well, we have a motion and a second on.
No, there is a public comment, a hand raised for public comment.
Correct.
John Olive.
I would just like to respond to Commissioner Matush's questions. Well, I've pretty made it clear what I wanted to talk about. And Nancy is right. Right now, the major problem with this district is Nancy Raring. She seems to have not a clue as to what is going on in the meeting that she's the president of. There's obviously this is propagated down to the whole board, and who doesn't seem to understand that they've been ripping on another agency for not communicating with them, when in fact, I supplied a whole list of emails showing that that agency was talking to your general manager and other staff members. What's going on there? And what is the real problem? Why is it that all of a sudden a key operation, a key facet of how the Harbor District justifies its existence, suddenly after 40 years, you can't do? And then all of a sudden you need funding from other agencies. Yet you haven't had a single meeting of the Revenue Enhancement Committee. And you're upset about other agencies discussing you, but you don't even have an active liaison committee, which hasn't had a meeting in years. The problem isn't staff, and the problem isn't other agencies, and the problem isn't me. The problem is the board of directors of this district, which simply has failed in its fiduciary responsibility to run the district properly, and is now in the situation that it finds itself.
Is he done?
Yeah, so I have my hand up. I just want to say one quick thing before we adjourn. Actually, that public comment was not tied to items F or G. So I just want to make that very clear. Anyway, I do have a motion to adjourn, and there's a second, and I'd like to call for the question, or I'd like to do a roll call, whatever we need to do. There's a motion and a second.
Yep, I think we just need roll call. Melanie?
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
President Ryder?
Yes.
Commissioner Zemke?
Yes.
Commissioner Matush?
Yes.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
All right, take care.
You.